So hello and welcome to Theatre and Tonic, where we'll be chatting to Nicole-Lily Baisden about 42nd Street, which is heading to the Curve from Wednesday the 17th of May before a run at Sadlers Wells. So hey Nicole-Lily, welcome to Theatre and Tonic. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really good, thank you. So how are rehearsals going? Because you're kind of just tying it up now, aren't you? Ready for the production to open?
Yeah, it's going really well. We're in the middle of our tech rehearsals, which are so exciting. It's our first time seeing the set, seeing the costumes, seeing everything all come together. So it's been a really fun time, and yeah, it's looking brilliant.
And obviously, we'll go back to kind of the start of your professional career, because you kind of graduated in 2019, didn't you? So you kind of had a start of a career and then kind of this pandemic kind of took hold. So how do you think that's kind of shaped you to where you are now?
I think pandemic happening pretty much not even a year after I graduated kind of taught me not to take anything for granted. It was such a good lesson in just going along with it, making the most of everything. So I think every time I've done either a workshop or even an audition, it's just that thing where it was nearly kind of taken away from a lot of us. So it's made me appreciate it so much more.
Oh yeah, definitely. And then you kind of worked on Anything Goes, and kind of Anything Goes with 42nd Street are quite similar because they have this tap dancing kind of embedded in there. So what kind of drew you to this show after doing Anything Goes?
So I saw 42nd Street for the first time when it was on a UK tour when I can't remember how old I was. I think I was maybe about 11. And I saw it in Woking and fell in love with it. It was fantastic. And I remember sitting there. Tap has always been one of my favourite genres of dance. And I've done it from such a young age. So I remember sitting there and watching them and thinking I would just love to be in a show like that with such epic routines, such memorable songs, and just to give it a go and try and put my own stamp on it. So, and also I loved Anything Goes. However, I didn't get to do any of the tap in it. So I think that was also a thing. I watched all of my friends do it every night and I was always in the wings cheering along and joining in. So I think the idea of actually being able to join in with the tap really drew me to this show as well.
And, you know, we talk about tap dancing, you know, it's one of my favourite genres of dance as well. And we don't really see a lot of it now, do we? As much as we used to. And do you think that's kind of something that's lost in these kind of new musicals, do you think, a little bit?
Definitely. I think more commonly in newer musicals, it's moving towards more of like a hip hop commercial kind of style, and we are kind of losing that tap element that so many of those old shows like Top Hat, Singing in the Rain, 42nd Street, Anything Goes all have. And I think it's a genre of musicals that I've always loved. I grew up watching the DVDs of all of those shows. So I think it is a shame. I would love to see more of it in new musical theatre. Not to say, I mean, there are new shows that do have a tap number or two.
Yeah.
I did Book of Mormon as well, and there was an amazing tap number in that. But I just wish there was more.
Yeah, me too. I totally agree. And how are you kind of managing that? Because obviously now you are doing probably a little bit more tap in 42nd Street. How are you kind of managing that physically?
It's been challenging. I won't lie. It's tiring, but I think you can't help but hear that music and dance 𝗘𝗺𝗶𝗹's choreography and not just feel absolute joy. And I think when we're all on stage looking around at each other, you can see the sweat, but you can also just see the smiles, and everyone's just having the best time. We've got amazing tap shoes that just make it a joy too, so that also helps, and we're being well looked after. So yeah, it's a lot of fun.
So can you tell us a little bit then about your character, Peggy Sawyer, and kind of what journey she goes on in 42nd Street?
So Peggy is a young woman from Allentown, Pennsylvania, a small town in America, that travels to New York to try and get into her first Broadway show. She goes through all sorts of trials and tribulations, but in the end manages to get into the show in the chorus. And it's all about putting on one of these big Broadway shows. It's big numbers, big sets, lots of costumes. And then the star of the show, Dorothy Brock, played by the amazing Ruthie Henschel, gets injured and somebody needs to step up. They need someone to step up and take over the lead part. And Peggy gets that chance and she steps up into the starring role of the show. And yeah, it's what makes her into this star at the end of the show.
And I think what's really nice about Peggy Sawyer's kind of journey is it does translate from like a lot of, you know, stories we see where swings have kind of done the same kind of thing. So do you think that's a really important story that's kind of embedded in that maybe we don't touch on as much?
Definitely. I think it's a story that a lot of people, even just chatting to people in the cast, a lot of people can relate to. And it's something that we see all the time, swings, covers, having to step up to keep the show together. Even just before lockdown happened with COVID, some shows, there was complete cut shows and every single swing was on stage just trying to hold the company together and keep the show going on. So it really is an important story, and I'm glad that audiences get to see kind of a glimpse into what happens behind the scenes putting on one of these big shows.
Oh yeah, for sure. So with Peggy Sawyer's kind of character, do you see any of yourself in her?
Funnily enough, yes. There have been a few times where I'm like, I think she, at the beginning, she kind of comes into the story and she's a little bit nervous. She's quite giddy. She's very green is the word. She just cannot believe her luck that she's surrounded by these stars in this show, this big Broadway show. And I think it reminds me of my first job, walking into day one of rehearsals and physically trembling because I was so nervous. And people take you under their wing, and it gets to a point where you've just got to kind of fake it till you make it. And no matter how terrified you are, you've just got to throw yourself into it. And yeah, so I think I do see similarities. Definitely walking into day one of rehearsals with people that I've watched perform since I was a child, like Ruthie Henschel, Les Dennis, Adam Garcia. It's people that I've seen in show after show after show, and being able to be in a cast with them is just a dream come true.
And obviously you have arrived in Leicester ahead of the opening. What do you think to Leicester as a city? Because I don't know if this is like your first time here.
So I have been to Leicester twice before, but only very briefly to come and see shows at the 𝗘𝗺, which is such a fabulous building. I think it's great. And yeah, so it's nice to actually spend some time in Leicester, get to wander around, get to know the city a bit more and the people a bit more. Everyone's so friendly, which is nice. I think sometimes being a Londoner, you're not used to people being so open and friendly and chatty. So that's really fun. And yeah, I'm just loving my time here so far.
Wicked. So what has been your favourite part of working on this show so far?
I'd say so far, rehearsals have been, we did 5 weeks of rehearsals, and just seeing it all come together from day one to the day we left the rehearsal studio, and how it was such a collaborative process, and seeing everything start from scratch and just get built up into the show we have now is just such an amazing journey to watch. And also we had the 𝗘𝗺 on Wednesday. That's the first time we hear the full orchestra play through the entire show, and it was magical. There were tears. Our supervisor Jen White has just got together the most amazing group of musicians that it just sounds incredible, and I can't wait for everyone to hear it.
Amazing. So of course 42nd Street is kind of this timeless musical that came back, you know, it came out back in the 1980s, and you know, different audiences will now be seeing this production for the first time, and they're kind of not sure what it's about. So what can they expect from this show that maybe they've seen in like newer musicals that they can kind of gravitate towards?
I think the interesting thing about this show is it's set in the Great Depression. So it's set in a time where times are hard. A lot of people are struggling financially, especially. And a lot of the chorus that you see in this show are quite literally the desperation that they need this job because no one knows what's going to happen. There's a lot of uncertainty. So I think in a way, there is a way that audiences now can kind of relate to it, given what people are going through at the moment. Also, it's just such a joyful show. You can't help but smile. There's something for everyone, definitely. All the different songs, all the different dance numbers, huge, beautiful sets, gorgeous costumes. I think there's just something that everyone will love coming into it.
Great stuff. And which musical number should people watch out for in the show?
I would have to say 42nd Street. So it's the final number in the show. It's kind of the iconic number, and it's a real treat. It's a long one, but it's a real treat.
It's worth every minute.
definitely.
And so, final question then for you, Nicole-Lily. Why should people book to come and see 42nd Street, whether that's at the Curve or when it transfers to Sadlers Wells?
I think whether you've seen the show before or you haven't seen the show, it's a new, exciting version of a classic musical. The cast is amazing. The music is amazing. I think there's something in it for everyone. It's a great story. I think it really draws an audience in and gives them a glimpse of what it is like putting on a West End show or a touring show. And I think audiences will be in for a real treat. So everyone should come and see it.
Great stuff. Thank you so much for your time to chat today, and good luck with 42nd Street.
Thank you so much.